Good morning, everyone. Welcome to our second session for empowerED Live. And I am just very happy to say that it is a weekend and we are starting or we are on a weekend that will be full of, learning and interaction with amazing people from the different parts of the world. For now, can I just say that you are very much welcome. You are very much welcome into our live session. And it's a Saturday. Thank you for staying with us. It's very early Saturday morning in the Philippines. And so thank you. So just continue drinking your coffee or maybe eating your sandwich or your pandesal or whatever food that you're taking for the morning. But yeah, so for today, I will be welcoming some special guests with our for our Empower Ed live session. But I just want to say in advance now, I am sorry that there will be one guest. Armand Doucet will not be able to join us for today because he had an emergency back at home in Canada. It's around 9:30 Friday night in Canada right now, and of course he had to attend to an emergency. But again, I'm just very happy because we still have three amazing guests who will be speaking to us about our topic. Our topic is storytelling, but we want to anchor the discussion of storytelling in the pandemic, in the crisis that we are experiencing right now. And of course, we want to explore storytelling and how we can not just only develop literacy skills, but at the same time also bring in the big idea of what it means to be a person with empathy, especially right now where we need more than just the literacy skill because we want to connect with other people in our community. We want to connect with humanity at this time of the pandemic. So there, we have some hashtag here, so you can continue tweeting with us. We are reading the comment section, and you can use the following hashtag that is moving at the bottom of our screen. So it's hashtag EmpowerEdLive, hashtag Hope Where Are You, and hashtag Pag-asa Nasaan Ka. So there, and then at the end of the session, you will be given a link to the evaluation and you will receive a certificate of participation after you've watched our live session. You can also send in your comments, your insights or questions so that we can also interact with you. We are live in Facebook and YouTube. So it might be good. A lot of people have shared. So it might be good also to go to the Empower Ed Facebook page and YouTube page so that we can get your comments also. All right. So I'm gonna bring in my guests right now. I'm just very happy to welcome them. I'm gonna start with a very special friend whom I met back in 2017 when I first joined the Global Teacher Prize community. So welcome, Elisa.
Jim, it's so nice to be here with you. Thank you for having us.
Elisa Guerra is from Mexico. He is a global educator. He's a school leader. He's a school leader. She's an author of children's book, and also if you've read the book about Fourth Industrial Revolution, she's one of the co-authors, and she will be speaking more about her projects right now later on. All right. So welcome to our live session, Elisa. And then I'm gonna add to our screen now, Anna. Hi, Anna.
Hi. Hi, Jim. Thank you for having us. How are
Okay,
you?
Anna. Anna is also in Mexico, and Anna is the daughter of Elisa. And they have a very inspiring and amazing tandem. They're a duo. Anna is an illustrator, so some of the books that Elisa has written or have written is also illustrated by Anna. So let's continue discussing that later. And lastly, a very good friend of mine who is also who has been also part of the community that I have on education technology in the Philippines, but he's also a Filipino language and literature teacher. I'm gonna add now Nico. Hi,
Hi, Jim.
Nico.
Magandang umaga. Good morning, everyone. Hi.
All right. So So for everyone, we're gonna do our interview in English so that we could better communicate with Anna and Elisa. But yeah, send in your thoughts, send in your comments. We're just very happy to be with you early this Saturday morning. Elisa, what time is it there in your place?
Here is 7:38 p.m. of Friday night, but as you can see, there's still some light. It's summer,
Yeah.
so it's light until very late in the day. So maybe in about an hour, a little bit more, we will have our sunset.
Right. Very interesting because a while ago when we were preparing, I was asking Anna, Alyssa, why is there still sun? And yeah, so she was able to explain it. All right. So let's jump into our discussion. However, sorry, before we discuss, can you please say something about yourself so that our audience could know more about you? Let's start with Elisa.
Well, hi everyone. I am a mother who became a teacher. I live in Mexico. I teach literacy and social skills to students ages 9 to 14 at my school, Colegio Valle de Philadelphia, which is a small private school that I founded way back when my kids were little because I didn't like the education opportunities that were given to kids at that time in my city. So I decided to found my own school, and that's what I did. When I did that, I had no idea of what it was to be a teacher. And I had to learn the hard way. But 21 years later, I am here, and I am so happy that I decided to become a teacher.
All right. Thank you, Elisa. So that's I think when I first met Elisa, I didn't know much about her, but as slowly when we've been acquainted in the community for how many years now, Elisa, and knowing that you founded like a school, because of your own aspiration, for your dreams for your children, that's really inspiring. And like what you've said, you've learned the hard way, right, to be how to become a teacher. So very we have a very high respect for all the teachers around the world. Thank you, Elisa. Anna.
Hi, everyone. So I'm Ana. I'm a student here in Mexico. I'm studying animation and digital art, and I love drawing and creating things with my hands. So I think that's it.
All right, let's try to connect Anna with the people in the Philippines. Anna, I think you have a very interesting story about your adventure in the Philippines. Can you share?
Yeah, so I was lucky enough to go to the Philippines right before the pandemic started. So I spent Christmas there last Christmas, and I had a wonderful time. I went actually to Palawan, and it was beautiful. You guys have beautiful beaches, amazing people, very good food. I had a lot of seafood and lechon, and and I actually learned that you guys have a lot of words in common with Spanish. So it was very interesting as well. Had an amazing time, and I hoping I can go back there soon.
We would love to have you back, and if you are here, then we will create a more opportunity for you to interact with every educator here because you're now part of a global movement which we will be speaking later, and I'm pretty sure we would be very very happy to welcome you here. Yeah, a shared culture between Mexico and and the Philippines, and yeah, it's not very different. We share a lot of things in our culture. So let us know when you're coming here. So Elisa and Anna, let us know if you're coming to the Philippines. Yes, so that we can
Well, yes, of
welcome you
course.
here.
I'm very jealous because it was only Anna who traveled there. I have never been to the Philippines, but she came back with such amazing stories and beautiful pictures that I have to find a way to get there.
Yes, we're just across the Pacific Ocean. Okay, all right. So and our last guest is Nico. Nico Fos. Nico Fos.
Hi, Jim. Hello, everyone. I'm Nico Fos, and I'm a grade 5 and 6 Filipino language and literature teacher in Xavier School, San Juan. My work really revolves around literacy, technology, and pedagogy, wherein it's the base where I usually work, and I hope that Filipino as a subject and as a language will be more appreciated and be studied in the Philippines with passion and with enthusiasm. So I'm happy to meet all of you, and maybe we'll go to Palawan gym after the pandemic.
Yeah, and that's everyone's wishes. We've been locked down. Just to see the comments, we have a lot of people watching right now. We have someone from Mexico.
Yes,
So from
hi Lupita.
yay, that's a nice shout out. Okay. So welcome everyone. So let's dive into the discussion. Let's start with the book Hope Where Are You that Elisa and Armand have written when at early part of this pandemic or at the middle of the pandemic. Elisa, can you tell us something about the book? What is it? What's the content? Maybe not to spoil everyone, but more than that, even the inspiration that you have when you wrote it.
Yes, thank you so much, Jim. Well, I've been an author for quite some time. I specialize in textbooks and books for little kids, early childhood and elementary school. So during the pandemic, my daughter Anna and me, we were working on a project with some books that we were creating for kids, a series called Around the World. And this was a project that we had even before the pandemic. And it just happened that the pandemic came and we were still working on that project. And so we published a few of those books. And we were talking, it was odd. It was, we were writing books about kids getting to know people from all over the world and kind of traveling, even if it was only through imagination around the world, in a time when everything was closed and travel was impossible, and kids had to stay at home. So we decided that we wanted to create a little book to help parents of little kids to read aloud with them about the fun and amazing things that they could do at home during lockdown. So when we created that book and we published it and I shared it on social media, Armand, he was my co-author. Also, we worked together for the book Teaching in the Fourth Industrial Revolution. He saw that book and he said, Elisa, why don't we do a book together, a children's book together? And we decided early on that it was going to be for older kids. My first book that he saw was for young kids, younger than 5. And the reasoning behind this book is that, of course, everywhere in the world, we are almost everywhere. We are facing lockdowns and a lot of very confusing news, very heartbreaking news. Every night we hear how many people has been infected, how many people has died, the economy, the loss of jobs, the all tragic news every night. And it's very easy for us to feel shattered and uneasy about that. And of course kids also suffer from that because they are very sensitive to what the adults in their households are feeling. So we wanted to change the narrative from fear to hope. uh, it, the situation was bleak, of course, but there's always hope. And we wanted to stress how the connection was still there, even though we were not able to hug each other or to actually see and touch each other. We could do that with our families, and we could still be connected to friends and neighbors and other people in our communities. So that was the main reasoning behind it. And of course, there was also a huge inspiration from one teacher friend of us. You know him well as well, Jim. This is Armando Persico, and I think he has been in your programs before.
Yeah, in the podcast.
in the podcast. Well, Armando comes from a little town in northern Italy that was especially hit, very hardly hit by the pandemic in the early days of the pandemic. And Armando himself, he lost four people in his family and lots of colleagues and friends, including his father. He lost his father. So we saw him on a video on a conference just like this one, and he stressed that he was worried because he had not been in touch as he wanted with his students, and he wanted to take hope to them. And it amazed us that even though he was going through these very tragic and difficult times in his own life, he had the clarity of mind and the beautiful heart to think about his students and wanted to reach them. So the book is dedicated to him and to all teachers in the world, of course, but very especially to him because he inspired us, great deal to create this book.
Yeah, thank you for that wonderful insight about how you started this project, Elisa. And before we just continue, just gonna give a shout out to our friend Armando Persico in Italy. He's been really a source of inspiration, and he's not tired of sharing his story, despite that it's very unfortunate. I think you're very correct, Elisa, in saying that he has been really there out there, you know. Just giving inspiration to everyone who's undergoing this. So, if Armando is watching us, hi Armando, we love you and we are keeping you always in our prayers. Elisa, I think that was a grand vision and goal, and I think it's a very, for me, I thought that it was a very simple idea, right? I mean, the process is very hard. It's very challenging, but it started with a very simple idea of just using storytelling, right? The use of stories to help children like cope with the pandemic, and it sparked a global movement that Nico and I are part of, which we are very honored and happy about. Can you tell us about the response to your global project, and maybe use also this time to tell more about it also?
Thank you, Jim. Well, yes, it is a very simple idea. And we really never thought that this book was going to go all the way as far as it went. And it is still a growing movement. So when Armand suggested that we should write a book, the date was April 15th. And the book launch was in May 19th. So a mere 5 weeks later, we had put the book together. And on launch day, we launched with 23 different languages already uploaded to the site. Right now, today we completed our 42nd language, and we still have about 8 to 10 more languages on the works. So we are going to reach more than 50 languages. But I want to stress that the people who did this translation, the amazing educators who helped us, were all volunteers, just like yourself and Nico, who were the responsible ones for the Filipino translation. Just like you, many other teachers and educators all over the world, some of them were our friends beforehand, just like you were, Jim, but others, upon the publication of the book, they came to us and they said, I want to be a part of this. I want to have the book in my language. I want other teachers in my country to be able to use this book as a resource for their classroom and for their families. And once a project becomes everybody's project, because we all feel it like a little part of ourselves, then the potential for growth is just massive, much more than when it's just somebody's creation, a single creation from a single person or a very small group of people. More than 100 people have now been involved in Hope, Where Are You, in the movement. And we are very happy and very grateful about that.
Yeah, and I think, Elisa, that was a very wonderful global project. And someone just posted in the comment, and I just want to bring it up again. It's from Angelo Magliari, one of our friends with Nico also, in the same school that we're teaching. It says changing the narrative from fear to hope, the power of stories. I think this really captures the big idea. And um, it's because that Elisa and Armand started this, it became like a global movement. And Elisa, can you tell us? I think we should share the wonderful news. How many have downloaded? How many downloaded books we
Oh,
have?
yes, that's wonderful. Well, up until last week, when we reached 3 weeks since launch, there was 500,000 downloads already of the book. Just imagine 500,000. And we are not counting here that even though 500,000 books is a lot, I think that much more people has been reached, because one teacher can download the book to use with his or her students, and that will make maybe a 20, 25, 30, depending on how many students you have in your group. And of course, one family that has many children. So I think we're over the million, of course, of people that have been reached by the book, and we are just in awe of that to happen. We never thought it will be possible. Now I don't know how many we have up until this point. Our team members are usually updating the numbers. I don't have the latest update, but once I have it, I will let you know.
All right, that's a wonderful news, and those numbers really speak of the magnitude, right, of the project. I want to jump first to Anna, right, before we continue our discussion, Elisa, on storytelling. Anna, can you tell us how you were able to become part of this project? I know that you and your mother, you live in just one house, stay in one house. How did you take part in this project?
Yes. So as my mom said, we were working together in a series of books that continues. But Armand, when he told my mom that he wanted to write a book with her, he actually asked her who was her illustrator. And I don't know if he knew it was me, like her daughter, because I use Ana Ro Gu, which is not my last name. It's I made it up with my two last names, so not everyone makes the connection right away that it's mother daughter. And she told him that it was me and that she was going to ask me, and of course the minute she told me, I was like, yes, I want to do it. I want to be part of that. Don't ask anyone else. It's me. I want to do it. So yeah, that was it.
And I love your illustrations. I really love it. And for the sake of the audience, I read through the bio of Anna. Anna has done projects also in Mexico. Despite being, still being a student, I think we want to recognize that also. Of course, there's a backstory that Anna was in a math course formerly in a math course. Now she is in arts design. So, and I think that paid off, like shifting to a new course. I love your illustrations. One thing that just to for everyone's knowledge, Elisa and Anna have been in my podcast early part of around April, I think, and we had a good conversation here. You can visit my podcast, empowerED, in Apple Podcasts or Spotify. I asked Anna there, and I want again ask Anna to share this. What really inspires her, like when she draw all the illustrations? Because the stories are very they're very heartwarming, but I also feel like there are different issues, like interwoven in the different stories and narratives. Anna, what was your like inspiration and maybe your favorite scene that you have drawn?
Um, well, my inspiration actually, a lot of the characters were inspired by real students and real people. Maybe not one specific person, but we knew from which country each kid was. We put the whole continent, but we had the idea for example, Alessandro he's an Italian boy. Well, in our minds, he's an Italian boy. So I saw a lot of pictures of kids and people around the world, and houses and just places, and how people dress in different places and things like that. And also, I always get inspired by other illustrators and other artists around the world. Social media is amazing for that. I have a mood board in Pinterest, and I think it's amazing that everyone shares their work, and you can learn from people all over the world. And I really get inspired by other artists. Yeah. Oh, and my favorite, the one I like the most, the illustration I like the most, I think, is the one with Nico, where he's I think it's the first one of Nico, where he's sitting and just watching the field with all the boxes when he feels very lonely. I don't know why. I like that one very much.
I but in the end, Anna, we just love your illustrations, and they're very much pleasing. It gives another dimension to the story that Armand and Elisa has written. Thank you for those wonderful answers, Anna. Nico, your turn. Nico and um, I was the one who messaged Armand, and Armand and I have been working in some on a few projects at this time. During that time, we were together in a conference. We were planning for a conference. We were also co-written a report to UNESCO, and when I saw it, I was like, this is a very good opportunity, and I told Armand there should be a Filipino version of this, and and when I messaged that, I thought to myself, I kind of felt nervous because, just to be honest, I told Elisa and Armand, oh my gosh, I'm not really good in Filipino. I can speak well, but I've never written a book in Filipino. And I still remember Elisa was like, we trust you. You speak the language. But then I brought in Nico. Nico is a very good, wonderful Filipino language and literature teacher. And Nico, can you tell us? No, we did the translation. I want to dig deep into your experience as a literature teacher. How does storytelling, it helps develop literacy, but what help does it give us, or what do we gain? Like when we translated "Hope, where are you" to Filipino, like "Pag-asa, nasaan ka?" What can children like gain from reading like books like "Hope, where are you"?
Okay, that's really an interesting question, Jim. And I think when I want to answer this question, I want to look back at our ancestors, and they've been using storytelling or orature or oral literature to transmit learning and culture traditions to their peers. And I think that still rings true up to this day, because as teachers, we still want to develop literacy skills. We want to still use literature for the same purposes. And the crucial way of developing literacy skills, it would help our students develop reading comprehension. It would also help our students develop their listening skills, reading and understanding, and among other macro skills in literacy. And so, in these difficult times, I think literature and telling stories is more needed than ever. And so, like my mentor was always telling me before, literature is the reflection of society. And so, as students and as the readers, reading is the gateway for them to understand what's really happening in the world, to get in touch with the culture, to get in touch with their roots, and help them understand their feelings and emotions and develop empathy towards others. And this can be done, especially with us teachers, when we teach them how to empathize with the characters that they've read, like the characters that are in the Pag-asa Nasan Ka or the Hope Where Are You. If they can understand the themes and the morals of the story, uh, this may they may appreciate reading, and this may help them develop the lifelong values, so that they will be, when they grow up, they will affect how they see the world. So I think that's the answer.
And I just want to point out also, Nico. Nico is like one of the teachers that I know that does not really focus. I mean, we need to focus on reading, like language, reading,
Mm. Yeah.
speaking, the basic literacies. But I've been working with Nico in a few projects, and one of the things that I really love about Nico is that he wants to see literature in action. Like,
Yeah.
we don't just read. We read not just to inform ourselves, but we read because we want to take action.
Mhm.
And I don't know if you would agree with me, but that's what I love about Hope, Where Are You? Or in the Filipino translation, Pag-asa Nasaan Ka? Because it's not just for the sake of reading the stories of everyone around the world. It pushes us to practice empathy, right? And from that empathy, it flows to an action. It flows to an action that would help us connect with other people. Nico, what is your plan, for example, about this book? Like, do you see it like as a book that we Filipino educators, whether we use the English, because for Anna and Elisa also, and our global audience, English is also a language that is being taught in the Philippines as early as kinder. So we have Filipino and English, and of course there's an English version. So whatever version that we use, like in our English language and literature class or Filipino, Nico, what can like educators gain, or even there's students gain when we use the book in our classes right now?
Okay. So to be honest, Jim, we're going to use the book in our Filipino classes. So yeah, we are opening our classes this end of July, and I've seen to it that we will be using this book because I teach grade 5 and grade 6, and I see to it that it really fits on the narrative of our young readers, emerging readers. And so we can use this as a really great reading material when we teach about reading comprehension, elements of the story, because number one, it really is timely and relevant, and it speaks to the lens of the it uses the lens of the youth on how they cope with this pandemic. It also touches about the different cultures of coping mechanisms, and so it also speaks about mental health and maybe inspiring our children, and it can be replicated in their own life. So like what Jim said about having the call to action part of the book, I think that's really a powerful tool so that our students would be able to find hope in what they've read, and they can also replicate it in their own lives. And honestly, I'm going to use it also with one of our authentic assessments, because when we teach about elements of the story, I just don't want it to see that our students just read it for the sake of reading it and understanding the elements of the story, but when we design our authentic assessments, we want them to empathize using design thinking and maybe create solutions for the stories. So it's literature based design thinking, and they can create projects and create solutions, and they can connect with the characters, and then they can also do it and make solutions when they apply the same narrative with their own lives. So that's it.
I don't know if Elisa, I'm having goosebumps right now because Nico is, I think this is what I like about it. Nico really is in the grassroots of classroom, and he knows how we can make use of the book. And I think Elisa also is, I think, sharing, maybe can shares with the idea. We are very happy because the book that and Armand has written, which Anna's illustrated, is finding its root, its way in the classroom. And Elisa, what's your response to the ideas of Nico?
I think it's wonderful. There is a phrase that my good friend Koen Timers, who's also a Global Teacher Prize finalist from Belgium. Jim, you also know him well. He was also another one of the co-authors of the book Teaching in the Fourth Industrial Revolution. He says that teachers are pedagogical engineers. And an engineer is someone that solves problems. I love that. I love that quote from Kuhn. And what we have seen is, just as Nico is saying, the ways that he can use the resources and that other teachers can use the resources, and maybe even create other resources, taking the book as a founding material. It just what makes it all worth it. So much creativity from so many teachers from around the world can only be a good thing, and good thing can happen with the book. So I'm completely um, touched and grateful to you, Nico, for sharing these great ideas. And of course, we have seen other teachers from around the world also using the book in very different ways. One that was very touching is a teacher in the UK who used the book also as a creative writing resource. And she asked the teachers to create their own, the students to create their own stories. So
Yeah.
what she did is that, uh, following the same pattern, what you were saying right now, like finding the structure of the stories. Well, the kids made their own stories, beginning with the title page.
Mhm.
Instead of Alessandro Europe, they will say maybe John Europe or John UK, and then in three short pages they will tell their own story, or make another stories. So I can
Mhm.
relate to this on what you said, that finding other solutions, other endings for the stories. Well, this is also creating other similar stories,
Yeah.
and we could go on and on and on. So I'm very happy to hear what you
You're
said.
welcome. Yeah.
And
I think Jim's not. Well, maybe I want to just also want to say when we were
All right.
using this
I hope
book.
that
Oh,
yeah.
Jim is back. Yeah. Hi, Jim. Okay. So I
It's
was
okay.
just
It's okay.
yeah.
I just had
Uh,
to adjust. Continue, Nico.
okay. Are you okay now? Okay. So when I was actually reading the book, um, it's really interesting to see the point of children coping with this pandemic, because we seldom see stories that are in the lens of the student, are in the lens of the children, especially during this time. So I think it's also a good idea that we help our students also tell their own stories as well.
yes, that's
Mhm.
that's powerful, because
Yeah,
it's not only the kids seeing themselves in the stories, it's
yeah,
actually creating their own story using the book as a platform.
yeah.
Um, I'm gonna butt in. Elisa, I think that's I love that what you've mentioned. I think this is something that I've seen with some of the in the Twitter account of Hope, where are you? I've really seen other kids being inspired to tell their stories, and I think that's a good exercise right now. It's a way of processing their experience,
Mhm.
and I love that you have really pointed out how, not just reading the book, but even writing your own story. I don't know, through a journal, a diary, or however we call it. It gives us a sense of, pouring out. There are certain kids who, I'm just speaking real talk right now. Sometimes they also encounter family problems at this time of the pandemic, and they don't have any other people to talk to, right?
Yeah.
Sometimes they see the teachers as the role model, but the teachers are not there. Their friends are not there, and maybe a notebook and a pencil or a pen is their way of coping with it. So I think there's a lot of things that we can do with what you have started, Elisa. I'm gonna go back to Elisa again. Let's talk about storytelling in a general sense. Nico has touched this, but wanna go back again to the big idea of using book and storytelling. Can you give us some thoughts about what can children gain out of it?
They can gain a lot. And by the way, not just children, Jim. We all love to hear stories or to see stories, and that's why Netflix is so powerful, because they are telling us the stories all the time. And that's why reading is also such a precious gift, because we want to hear stories, we want to be told stories. We connect with the characters in the stories, and we feel as if we know them from a long time ago. And when things like what we're going through happen, and that we're feeling hopeless and scared, and we're facing many different problems, when we read or when we listen another person's story, even if it's fiction, we can see ourselves reflected in that humanity. We can recognize ourselves there, and we can heal or begin to heal because of what we see, and what the character did, and we can learn from his or her mistakes, and also from the things that they did well. We get a lot of insight from those stories. But at the same time, the stories, you feel yourself, you can see yourself on them, but you are watching from a safe distance. It's not anyone pointing to you and saying, look, this is what is happening to you, this is why you should not do this, or this is why you should do that. That is for you to find out for yourself. If you see your reflection in the other person, in the character of the book, then it's talking to you in a very personal way. And I think that's why storytelling is so powerful. And we never outgrow from storytelling, even as adults. From children's book, but from many other books and stories, we're still learning and we're still healing. That's one aspect of it. The other aspect that I would like to talk about is that the book was created with the idea to help parents and educators engage in lively conversations with children. The book was not meant to be used just by itself, but as an opening door to important, sometimes difficult maybe, but important conversations. So I imagine if parents can begin to talk about issues that worry us in a respectful way, because we have given them this kind of platform to do that. I think the book is following its purpose.
Right, wonderful. I think, Alyssa, you have surveyed the joy, what we get, what we gain from reading. And I'm just reading through a lot of the comments came in, and one of those is telling stories to kids within their experience make them more excited and they can relate much to it. Of course, it also starts with enhancing reading comprehension. And I think this is one commentary that I would like to share. We've seen that how the challenge of the Philippines being, having that result in terms of reading comprehension in the past PISA, the PISA result, and it brought a lot of questions. And one of the things that came out from educators was that maybe it's because reading is not being enjoyed. It's not something that the youth is doing right now, because of course there's Netflix, there's social media and everything. The joy of reading a book, the joy of reading a story. There's a lot of competition right now that kids, social media, internet, YouTube, or whatever. But I love what you're pointing right now, because it lets us go back to the roots of storytelling, of using stories, not just reading, enhancing reading comprehension. It starts with that. But I think because we feel good, can interact with the characters, then it pushes us further to dig deeper. We are an outsider, like we are an outsider in the story. But if we put our heart into it, like practice empathy, I think that's one skill that we want to put that out there. We are able not just to draw from the experience of everyone, but to really put ourselves in that story and be one with it. So I love your thoughts. I love your ideas, Elisa, and Nico, and Anna. Anna is even like pointing this out, like for her to really understand to draw well, to put another dimension. Anna, I remember Anna like really pointing out that she reads the story first, put herself in the story to be able to visualize right? What the characters are seeing. So very much, I'm happy for the input and a lot of wonderful ideas. We are now in the last round of questions, and this is my cue to our audience to think of their questions or insights that they want to point out. We have a lot of wonderful insights. Please take this time also to type in your questions, which we will go through later. Last round of questions, and I remember asking this to Elisa, and Elisa was like, it's like asking me to choose among my children. I'm
I
not
know
gonna
where
ask
you're
that.
going. I know where
I'm
you're going. Go ahead.
I'm not I'm not gonna ask the same question, but since we're speaking about empathy and relating, I wanna ask like each one of you, and I will share mine also, which of the characters was the one that really, you related with? Right? We want to relate with everyone, but I'm pretty sure that there's a character that spoke to us. Which
Yes.
of those? I'm gonna start with let's start with Anna.
Okay, so I think this is obvious because I like his illustrations, and I always say he's my favorite. But I related with Nikau the most. He was the last character to be incorporated in the story. Um, and I don't know, since the beginning, when they told me that he was going to use art to find his hope and relieve his anxiety and stress, I was like, that's me. I need to draw him. And I also think because I'm an introvert, so it's very hard for me to have a lot of friends and connect with people. So I do tend to feel lonely sometimes, as he says in his story. But creating things and art and drawing and just finding that creative outlet is what brings me hope and what makes me feel better and what um, you know uh, gets away the anxiety and the stress. So I really connected with Nika.
All right. Without spoiling everyone, so they have to read that part because Anna says that that character speaks to her deeply. Nico.
Okay, so maybe the character. You want me to spoil or not? No, I'm just kidding. So, okay, so maybe the character that I really relate much, and also I really enjoyed. I think one of my favorites in the stories. So I really relate with Alessandro from Europe, and maybe because we have that connection with our families and our grandma, and I think it's okay if I say this, Jim. So it's a little spoiler. So well, Alessandro's grandma, something happened to her, and it also happened the same to me, just like last month. So it really is a touching piece, and I think that a lot of children, a lot of people are also um, experiencing the same narrative with Alessandro, and so it's good that we have this for Alessandro. He has music to, or he has something that can hold on to, and it also the same goes for me. And I think when we teach our students to hold on to something, and then that's a powerful tool of storytelling. We're not just reading the story, but the story is already empowering you to do something and to hold on to something. Thank you, Jim.
And thank you so much, Nico. That's we felt it in our hearts. So thank you for sharing. Elisa.
Well, thank you, Jim. I think I'm getting darker and darker and darker. So you see that the day is dying here in Mexico. So when I tell you about this, then I will pause briefly to put some lights here. but
Sure.
the character that I related to the most, in my case, was Gabby. Not only because she's from Latin America, and by this I would like to stress that not a single character is representative of all his or her continent. These are just very particular stories, very individual stories, and of course, we wanted the book to be as diverse as possible. But if we wanted to be really inclusive, we will have to write a novel, not a short story book. But in any case, Gabby is very dear to me since her creation, since I was writing the book, co-writing it with Armand. Um, Gabby likes to write, and for me it's the same. I love writing, and that makes me feel better. Also, Gabby, I don't want to spoil anything, but there is the issue of domestic violence. Very, very subtle there, but there's the issue of domestic violence, and that's a topic that is very close to my heart. You know that in some families, there is this situation which is completely harmful for everyone, but most precisely for the kids. And due to the pandemic, sadly, this problem can be greatly exacerbated. Violence to women and to children in particular, it's something that can be exacerbated by the pandemic. And I feel deeply for the children that are in that particular situation. So she's very dear to me. I even shared with her my favorite tree. Her favorite tree is a jacaranda, which is a beautiful tree that we have in Mexico and in other parts of Latin America. That it blooms with beautiful purple flowers, purple violet flowers that are in bloom for just maybe for about 2 months in the year. I just love the tree. It smells beautiful. It looks beautiful. So I look at Gabby and I find a lot of myself in her story.
Wow. I think it's my turn. Elisa, do you need to? Yeah,
I'm
yeah.
going to turn off my camera. Just
Alright. So, my turn. I think it's obvious. I can relate with Bo, the character from Asia. I think it's because I the character uses much of technology. I think he's one of the kids that we have who are very into technology, and I love the fact that we touch the idea of the makerspace, 3D printing, and everything. So I can relate with Bo. At the same time, also I think it because it speaks of my advocacy also. Like Bo, using what you have at home to really create something, right? That could help other people. I think that's one thing that I've been really proposing, advocating. I work on makerspace. I work on innovation, project-based learning. A lot of those things really calls our learners to not just master the knowledge and skills, but to use them to create something that would help the world. Maybe not the world, because that's a big, it's a big goal. That's the goal that we want to happen. But maybe just help the person beside you to have a better life, right? To have a better experience. So I can relate with Bo, and I'm happy that the story brought out also the idea of creating or making something, and that's wonderful. So there, I think we've gone through a lot of our questions. Um, I just want to go with some of the questions that we have right now before we proceed to the next part. And one of the questions that came here is, and I want to direct this to you, Elisa. I think you might have also the experience into answering this. It says here, I'm gonna post it on our screen. Is it really my fault? So Mary Jane says, is it really my fault as a parent when my children do not really love to read, even though I keep telling them to read and read, and I also read with them though?
Oh, okay. That's a very touching question, Mary Jane, and I can feel your pain. I am also a mother. I want to tell you that I don't think it's your fault, and of course, I don't think if it's your children's fault either, and not even the teacher's fault. Um, I don't want to get started and go too deep into this, but I think that most that we have a very big problem with reading comprehension and getting kids to read. You mentioned, Jim, just earlier that in the Philippines, lots of kids do not have a proper reading comprehension and that your PISA scores were very bad. Well, in Mexico, we have the same problem. Our PISA scores showed that half of our 15-year-olds cannot read according to grade level. And UNESCO and the World Bank say the same for kids age 10. They can't even read a simple text. So what is happening here? 50%, it's way too large a percentage for us to think that it is the parents' fault or the kids' fault or the teacher's fault. I think it has to do when and how we are teaching our kids to read. Now, that has been my passion for many years now. I taught my kids to read when they were very young. I read a book called How to Teach Your Baby to Read, and this book was authored by Glenn Doman. I began to teach my children with his programs when they were very, very young. And much of what I read in the book made a lot of sense. And this is when I was not a teacher yet, but today that I am a teacher, it makes even much more sense. You see, reading is not a school subject. Reading is a brain function. But the problem is that we confused reading with formal schooling and we wait until kids are age 6 or even later to start the process of teaching them to read. And when we do so, when we start to teach them to read, we fragment language. We teach them by the sounds of the letters and we make them repeat their letters. And that's a process that has nothing of joyful on it. So, of course, we don't have time here to go over a better way of how to teach our little kids to read and how to make our kids fall in love with reading. But if there are any parents out there that are interested, I widely recommend these books by Glenn Doman. The one that I read was called How to Teach Your Baby to Read. But don't think that if your baby is no longer a baby, you are out of luck. No, actually, it's for any child below the age of 6 that could benefit from this way of learning to read in a very joyful, easy, and natural way. There are many other books by Glenn Doman, but I think that this will be the place to start if you are interested in getting your kids to love reading and to devour books.
Wonderful answer, Elisa. It's really part of our. I think it's not only Mexico and Philippines, but even other countries. We really have a challenge on this, and we are very. It's the challenge for educators, and I would always come to the idea that I would always go back to what my school has been advocating, that reading is not just it's not just teaching students how to read. Is not just the work of a reading teacher, right? Or a literature teacher. It's the job of everyone.
Yes.
So whether you're teaching science, math, you're a parent, or whatever you are, role you play for the children, I think we have that kind of responsibility to make sure that we encourage everyone to read, right? Of course, the context is different right now, but that's very, very important idea. Everyone is a reading teacher. That's what I remember from our school.
And parents are reading teachers too. They are the most influential teachers for their own children. Just like
yes. All right. A question that we can answer, Nico, Elisa, or Anna, if you want to jump in also, but there's no pressure, Anna. Question is how my grade learners, how can my grade, maybe they mistype this, but the question is really how can we help students practice or develop reading comprehension skills. It's the same question with Rita. How can I improve the reading comprehension of my maybe learners?
Who goes
Are
first,
there
Nico?
tips?
You go first or I go first? You go first?
Sorry.
Nico, you want to go first on this one or you want me to go first?
Okay. Maybe you can go first. Okay. Sige. All right.
Okay. So again, we could spend a very long time talking about this, and I'm just going to share some brief points. But kids will not want to read if they do not understand what they are reading. And one of the main problems with the reading comprehension is reading fluency. Because if you are decoding, and decoding is a very slow process, if you are decoding when you are reading, you are robbing that from the comprehension. Every brain power that you use for decoding is brain power that you rest or rob from reading comprehension. So we need to increase fluency. How do you do that? Well, the easiest way to do that is to train the brain to recognize by sight very quickly many reading words, and of course to increase also the vocabulary of our children. Now, a very simple way to do this is to create word cards, and that's how we teach very little kids to read, very young kids to read. We do not use the vowels and then the other letters of the alphabet, and then we make no. That's nonsense for a young kid or for an older kid. So what we do is we create cards with whole words. And I don't have them here at hand because I didn't know that we were going to get into this topic today. But you show these cards very quickly. You show a short number of cards, and the session will be just a few seconds. And even though this was designed for very young children, we still use that same technique at our school with our grade level students, or even secondary students up until grade 9 that we have them in the school. And we have seen with that, they can recognize the words very quickly, and that of course will help with their comprehension skills. This is just a glimpse of the many things that we could do. But of course, it will be too long for us to take into that right now. But I just didn't want you to say nothing. I wanted to share at least a little glimpse of what it will take to improve reading comprehension. But it's something that can be done, even if you're an adult and you are not very good at your own reading skills. That is something that we could do with you, that you could do with yourself as well, and other things, and many other things. Maybe we need another program, Jim.
Yeah, I think because there are some questions. I think it's really the question what strategies, what can be used. I think what Elisa is saying is, there are things that we can do right now, but when we look at this, we also need to dig deep into what it means to help students to read. And Elisa has mentioned this is one way, and there are a lot of things.
Yes.
I would be happy again to have you, Elisa, to talk about this. But I think this is the challenge right now that we have. It's because maybe we need to recognize that reading itself, it's not just recognizing the vowels and the words, putting them together. It's also understanding what they mean. So the questions are very straightforward, but the answers need to be staggered, because we need to follow a developmental way of ensuring that kids read or understand even what they're seeing also. Maybe we can go with Nico. Nico, any strategy? You're teaching language and literature. And we can also, I think a lot of the questions here are coming from teachers from the public school sector, and there are challenges to it. Nico also taught in the public school.
Yeah.
He was a former member of the Teach for the Philippines. So Nico, maybe you can share your experience, past and the current experience also.
Okay. So just like Jim said, I was part of Teach for the Philippines, so I taught in the public school for 2 years. It's under the global network Teach for All. And so when I was, well, I want to speak and answer this question from a very personal experience. So when I was actually teaching in the public school, it also ignited my passion for reading and literacy. And so when we were, along with my team, we have found that a lot of really of our, we taught third graders. So we have found out that a lot of young readers are struggling, not just reading the text or reading the words, but understanding what they are reading. And so when we were there, we tried to come up reading remedial programs and to target which who among these struggling leaders should undergo in this program. And so it really rings through until today, especially in the public sector, that before we offer opportunities for reading remedial programs, teaching different strategies, I think if we give them also the basic needs that they have, because a lot of my students before who are also part of my reading remedial program are also part of those who are living, maybe they are part of the feeding program. So we need to support them first in the very basic needs so that they be able to join and enjoy these opportunities and reading. And then second, we set up along with my team, we help the school set up a library. And I think that also rings true for our teachers today. When we provide opportunities, we provide the physical space. um, I think that goes a long way. And even it can also be replicated in online environment. When we provide them the opportunity, the space to read, the right tech tools to read, and then they'll be able to successfully read. And now, speaking of my personal experience now, so I teach in the private school, and we don't have those problems anymore, with those challenges anymore. But the problem stems on the root of the first language that they're learning. So a lot of my students are really English speakers. So in context, Philippines speaks English, speaks Filipino, and in the provinces we speak a lot of languages. And so when we teach in the formal school, it's a dilemma for parents what kind of language they want to teach first. And so if they teach the L1 first, I think when we, as parents and teachers, we should teach our mother language first before we go to English or other languages. Because when we truly master our first language, then it would be easier for us to understand and connect with the other languages as well. So I think that's my insight. And lastly, as Filipino teacher, we want interactive reading. It's not just reading, but literacy and action. um that's it. Yeah.
Yeah, Nico, I think you were able to give very concrete ways, right? Setting up spaces, putting up remedial classes. Lizelle's question was answered. You answered Lizelle's questions a while ago. Like, how can we teach them? How can we read them storybooks if they're struggling? Nico gave a very concrete idea. If they are struggling, then you need to go to their context, right? I think we need to understand that if they are struggling in class, then it's a given that they will not be able to go with the standard, the regular, way of doing things. So Nico is pointing out that maybe we need to set up a very dedicated space for them, not just space, but actually even the processes, the strategies, so that they be able to cope up with it. I think that's one thing that we need to understand. The idea of remedial is not just to pull them out, just to tell them that that you're struggling, but it's actually to go down to their context, and from their context bring them up to whatever kind of standard that we want them to achieve. I think that's the basic idea. So it will ask much from teachers, but if we really want them to become good readers, then we need to take advantage of different things. I want to share something about how I learned, well, to love stories. And I just want to point this out again because it's very nostalgic. When I was born and raised in the province up north. in the Philippines, northern parts of the Philippines. Filipino is not my mother tongue. English is not my mother tongue. I speak Ilocano. But there is this public library across like the street that we have, and it was open. And every weekend or even after class, I would go there. They open it for kids, and we had books donations from the United States, from Manila, and I learned how to read, or maybe I learned how to love reading because of the stories that they have. It's the stories that I don't usually read in my school, because my school also had problem with access. Like we have books, but they were not enough. So I would go to that library. It's now closed. I was so sad when I found out it was closed for a long time. But it served a lot of young children during my time. We would go there to read. You know, it's it's not just the academic side of reading. It's actually just giving the kids what they want to read. That's one question. It says, how can we encourage those students who are hesitant whenever they will be taught? Or maybe I think Elisa mentioned this a while ago. Maybe we can start with books that they are interested in. Oftentimes, we give books that we love as educators, right? But it might start with giving them the books that they want to read, whether it's a story of like an anime or whatever. I think that's one thing that we recognize. We impose what we like. I don't know if you would
Yeah.
agree with me, but I often think that we are imposing so much of the stories that we want them. It's because I know that there is a reason behind it. Maybe because we know as adults or as educators, this has more lessons that they can get from. But I think maybe we can balance it out with allowing them to choose, right, what they want to read also, right?
Can I
At least, Anna.
Come on.
I'm of course I'm not a teacher. From a student point of view,
Yeah.
I think that what you say, Jim, is very important to let them choose. But sometimes when a teacher tells you, you go find a book, whatever book you want to read, it's okay. Sometimes in a sea full of books, you get lost and you don't know which is a good book to start with, or a good book. So one of my favorite teachers actually made a list of 10, 15 books, and he dedicated a whole class to tell us a little bit about each story. So just enough so if anyone was interested, you were like, oh, I want to read that one, or that story, it's interesting to me. And then he also said, if someone else wants to read another book, come to me and tell me which book you want to read. And if I haven't read it, I will read it with you so we can comment the book then. Because that was the whole point of it, to comment books in my class. So I think that's great to have a list of books that the teacher knows are good books, and a lot of students could be interested. And if someone else wants to read something else, or they have an idea of what book they want to read, also the teacher to compromise to read that book as well, and have a conversation with the students about it. So I think that's good.
Wonderful. I love that you spoke, Anna, coming from the student's perspective. Like, because it brings another perspective on the table, on the discussion. Because I often think, like, because teachers are engineers, we plan everything out so well that we leave the voice of the students out of the picture. So Anna, thank you for affirming and sharing, telling us or reminding us that you have to listen to us, like you have to listen to students also. So wonderful thought, Anna. I have just one more question before we go to the next part. I'm excited because Nico will be reading to us an excerpt from the Filipino translation of the book.
Yeah.
And I think this is a very challenging question, but I just want to point this out because it's very relevant also. How could I help my grade 1 pupils read? So they're not yet, they're still beginning. we're doing remote learning in the Philippines, right? Much like the others. And I think this has been a challenge for young learners. If there's no face to face and there's no access to online tools, like for some places in the Philippines, how can we still help them to read? I think this is one question that is very hard to answer right now, because we're really in that situation where there's no access. Because it's easy to say, if you have access to online tools, there are online tools that could help you with it. But what if they don't have access to face and access to internet? So our answers might not be perfect, but
Yeah.
we just want to throw some suggestions. So I think they will have to choose from the suggestions that we give, whatever applies to the context.
You want to
So
go
anyone?
first this time, Nico, or you
Yeah,
want me to go
I can,
first?
I can answer first.
You go first.
I
Okay.
will. Okay. Uh, so that's a really hard question, but I'll try to answer. So from the context in the Philippines, so the Department of Education actually rolled out MELCs and the different standards that we needs to be prioritized, and one of them can be reading. So in context as well, in the Philippines, we have different needs. So the DepEd already had their needs assessment to further tailor fit what kind of learning modalities would be useful for that region or for that district. And so when we opt for remote learning or learning without technology or not online, the Department of Education and the government is pushing for broadcast enabled learning. So we have radios and TV shows that could help our students um, practice reading, and then the teachers will be handing out learning packages or module types to supplement whatever they are watching or listening on the radio. So it is also nostalgic for me because growing up, we have several TV shows in the Philippines. From the Filipino teachers who are watching or from the Filipinos watching, we have Batibot. If you remember that, we have Siniskwela. So I think if we bring back these radio programs and then supplement with the learning packages that teachers are giving and delivering to the different households, and then we would make it clear for our parents what's their role in supervising and reading. And so I think that would be a good one-way strategy, good strategy for us to start.
I
Yeah.
like what you said, Nico, about engaging parents in the process. And specifically since Angelo's students, oh no, it's not Angelo's. I don't see the question anymore. Oh, Dan Santiago. No. Okay. I'm sorry I lost your name, but your students are first graders, and I assume that they are just starting to read right now. But we need to remember that reading is visual mostly, a visual experience. So the kids need to be able to see the words. And we have three key components or three key words for our reading sessions. Our reading sessions should be in frequency very short, in duration, and I mean in frequency very high, duration. No, frequency very high, duration very short, and intensity very high. So we present the reading sessions very short, very frequent throughout the day, and with lots of intensity. The intensity relates to the size of the words, but also the intonation on which we present the words. We use words that are close to the kids' context. So maybe the teachers could make a list of some reading words that will be good for the students. And what we have done at our school, and of course, I am talking about our own specific methodology, which will not be the same as all the other methodologies, but as Jim said, these are just some suggestions. What we do is that one, the teacher makes videos of herself teaching the reading words, and she either sends the video over WhatsApp or she posts it on YouTube, and parents should show the kids that video 3 times during the day. Now, these are very short videos. They are less than 1 minute. So it's not like the kids have to sit there for half an hour or anything. Also, we teach the parents how they can teach the reading words by themselves. And we even email them the template for them to print the words if they want to do so, or if not, to use that words on the phones or on the tablets or even the computer. So because kids need repetition, 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 but we need to show the cards very quickly. The words need to be very closely related to the children. And we need to do it very joyfully. It's not going to be like, dog, cat, rabbit, horse, cow, very good. Next one. No, we need to say, we are going to see some reading words about animal. Look, here we see dog, cat, rabbit, horse, hen. Wonderful. You're so bright. And that's the end of the session. We do this several times a day, very short sessions, and pretty much kids begin to grasp the words very quickly.
Yeah.
So just one suggestion.
Yeah, thank you. Nico and Elisa gave wonderful questions. So I hope Mirna was the one who asked question. So Mirna was able to take note of this. Of course, there are a lot of different strategies also. I think it's very important that we involve parents. Of course, other questions would be, what if parents are not literate also? Of course, the question can go on, but I always think that parents should be involved. They need to be part of it, especially in remote learning. Even before, my parents were very much involved when I was studying. I mean, at night they would sit with me. They would ask questions: "How you are? How was the lesson that I had? Which lesson do I need help with?" So I don't think that is a strange idea, because parents have been really involved. I think the challenge right now is more of the frequency of how much involvement, and of course the involvement is really getting bigger in the scope also. So parent-school partnership is very, very important. Like Nikos mentioned a while ago, we need to be very clear with what we are expecting from parents also. Problems like, what if they are not literate and they need help also? Maybe we can find ways, because before we can even go down and help with the student, we might need to help the adults also. So it might mean training or teaching the adults first. So there's no one way, like direct answer to it, but we need to take it step by step, right? And of course, collaboration, we need that. I'm very much thankful there are a lot of participants that we are putting questions. We're very sorry because we cannot entertain all of them, but you can keep on interacting with us, and I hope you could also take some time to follow. Elisa has a public Facebook page. Nico also has a public page that you can follow in Facebook or in Twitter. So we just want to thank everyone for being with us. It's getting darker in Mexico, in Anna and Elisa, so we don't want to hold them much longer, but we just want to express our gratitude to Elisa and Anna. Thank you so much for being here. It's not yet the goodbye because we want to listen. So Anna and Elisa, let's listen also. Elisa has been, Anna's been saying that there are words that have been the same, that are similar to Mexico, to Mexican language. So you could also, like to Spanish, you could also listen to this one. It might be interesting. So Nico,
I'm looking forward to it.
Yes, Nico, it's your time. We will remove ourselves so that they could focus on you while reading. So we will remove ourselves from.
Okay. Okay, ang babasahin ko po ngayon ay isa sa mga kwento ng mga bata sa paghahanap nila ng pag-asa. So ang napili nating basahin ng kwento ngayon ay ang kwento ni Alessandro mula sa Europa. Ilang linggo na ang nakaraan noong nagsimula kaming mag-aral mula sa aming mga bahay. Tiniyak ng aking guro na naiuwi ko sa bahay ang aking mga libro, gamit sa pag-aaral. Kasama na ang aking violin bago pa man nagsara ang paaralan. Mahirap ang pangyayari ngayon. Tapos, nagkakasakit din ng madalas ang aking lola. Nakikita kong nag-aalala ang aking mga magulang. Nag-aalala rin ako. Pero hindi namin pwedeng kausapin o kaya ay bisitahin ang lola namin. Malungkot na malungkot ako. Nahirapan akong ipakita at ipahayag ang aking nararamdaman at ayokong maabala ang aking mga magulang. Kahit nakatira kami sa isang bahay, pakiramdam ko'y para bang nag-iisa ako. Parang wala ako sa sarili. Isang araw, may tumawag sa amin. Wala na raw si Lola. Ganoon lang kabilis. Hindi man lang ako nakapagpaalam. Tumawag si Ginang Rosie na aming kapitbahay. Alessandro, narinig ko ang balita. Nakikiramay ako. Nanatili akong tahimik. Hindi ko alam ang aking sasabihin. Nagpatuloy na nagsalita si Ginang Rosie. Alessandro, wag mong kalimutan ang iyong violin. Sa mga oras na ito ay may ipakikita at may papahayag ko ang iyong nararamdaman at sarili sa pamamagitan ng musika. Pabulong ako nagpasalamat at binaba ang telepono. Matagal kong tinitignan ang violin. Sa wakas, kinuha ko ito at sinimulan kong tugtugin ang aking violin. Habang tumutugtog ako, ay nagsimulang pumatak ang mga luha mula sa aking mga mata, pababa sa aking mga pisngi. Naramdaman kong unti-unting nawawala at ang paninikip ng aking dibdib. Nawala na rin ang kalungkutan. At nakangiting nakapanood o pinapanood ako ng aking mga magulang. Sinabihan ako ng aking mga magulang na gustong-gusto raw ni Lola yung makinig sa aking musika. Kaya siguro dapat ay lumabas ako sa balkonahe at tumugtog para sa kanya nang marinig na sa langit. So kinagabihan, habang maaga pa, lumabas ako at kinuha ang aking violin at tinugtog ko ang musika sa aming balkonahe. Nagulat ako. Lumabas din ang aming mga kapitbahay sa kanilang mga balkonahe at nagsimulang tugtugin ang kanila namang mga instrumento. Mayroon namang nagsimula ng kumanta kasama ko. Dahil dito, naramdaman kong nanumbalik ang dati kong sarili. Hindi maipaliwanag ng aking puso, pero napakasarap sa pakiramdam. Kaya ninais kong sana'y napakinggan ni Lola ang aming musika sa langit. At diyan nagtatapos ang kwento ni Alessandro at kwento ng kanyang pag-asa. Maraming salamat sa nakikinig.
Wow.
Thank you.
Wow, Nico, that was wonderful. You
Thank
have
you.
the voice of an actor.
Thank you. Years of
Wow.
training in the classroom. I'm just kidding.
Wow, yes, of course.
But thank you.
Teachers are entertainers as well.
Yeah.
And
Yes.
I was able to get some Spanish words. Can I say them?
Yeah.
So, of course, cuento, which is story, right?
Yes.
And then violin, the violin.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Música.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You said something like balcone, but for us,
Balconaje. It's balconaje.
balconaje, and for us, it's balcón, the balcony.
Oh,
Yeah.
balcony. Yeah.
Yes.
Instrumento. You also said instrumento,
Instrumento.
Yeah, instrumento.
like instrument. I don't know
Yes.
if you got any of them other words, Anna.
No, I got the same as you.
The same.
I actually wrote them and they are the same.
Oh, okay.
That's wonderful.
But
Yeah.
I was like, hey, another word. Hey, another word.
Anna didn't get lost in the Philippines when she came here. So yeah, you'll pretty much survive the Philippines when you come here and communicate with people. So Wonderful. Thank you, Nico.
Thank you, Jim. Thank you, everyone.
Yes, and thank you, Elisa and Anna. It's nighttime in Mexico, and of course, we continue to grapple to understand how we can further help our students, ourselves, our school communities, and the bigger community at this time of the pandemic. And the book "Hope, Where Are You?" translated in Filipino, "Pag-asa nasaan ka?" It's one of the tools, specifically one of the stories that we could use to be able to help our kids, our learners, our students cope with the pandemic that we have right now. I think the message is very clear and very straightforward. Let's help everyone find hope at this time when everyone is in this crisis. I think that's very, very clear. And that's one thing that we drive. More than the skills that we've been talking about, it all boils down to the idea that we need to hold on to something, and that is our hope. We can find it anywhere, and the story will let you know how we can find hope in our life. So thank you so much, Elisa. Anna.
Thank you. I
Thank
always
you.
mispronounce this, I think, but salamat.
Yeah.
Yes,
Thank
Yes.
you.
thank you. That's very good, Anna. Alisa, thank you so much. Nico, of course, thank you so much. And we
Thank
want to
you.
thank
Thank you.
everyone who's joining us. So we will be flashing later on the link to the book. Some of the people were asking about the book. Yes, it's free. It's free. You can download the English, the Filipino. There are other versions if you're interested. Also, like in Spanish, if you're teaching word languages, right? So you can also take a look at the other translation.
42
Elisa,
languages to choose.
yeah, Elisa, maybe you could something about how they could further help, like the donation that they could give.
Yes. Well, we understand that as much as we would like this book to reach every child in the world, that's of course impossible. And many kids out there are in a very vulnerable situation, and they need many basic things, starting, for example, with food and shelter. So we are running at the same time as the book campaign. We are running a campaign to fundraise for UNICEF COVID-19 response. So in the website where you can download the book completely for free, please consider, if you are able to do so, if you can afford it, to please donate something, even if it's just a little amount. A little amount can go a long way if we all do the same thing. So if you can do it, please click the button that says donate. That will take you directly to UNICEF fund for COVID, and make your donation there. Let's help UNICEF help the most vulnerable kids in our world during this pandemic and beyond.
All right, thank you so much. So it's not just a book; it also calls us to act in terms of helping out to people, to children who are in very vulnerable situations right now. So that's in collaboration with UNICEF also. So thank you so much, Anna, Elisa. This is our final goodbye. Of course, we can still communicate, but for our live session today, we want to thank and say goodbye to Nico, Anna, and Elisa for the wonderful conversation. For everyone, please tune in again. Please don't forget to share this session. It will be available in our across our empowerED platform. Subscribe if you want to get updated with the next live sessions and the different shows that we have for empowerED, for educators, for every member of the school community. So thank you so much, everyone. Enjoy your Saturday. For everyone in the Philippines, Anne and Elisa, enjoy your Friday night.
And thank you,
Thank you so
Philippines.
much.
Thank you for having us as part of your Saturday morning, Philippines. Thank you, everyone. And thank you, Jim and Nico. Thank you, Jim, for hosting us and for your invitation, and for translating the book once more to you too. Thank you.
Thank
All right.
you so much.
Bye,
Thank
everyone.
you. Bye.
So we're gonna leave now and just gonna flash the evaluation and the information to where you can download the book. So bye, everyone. Happy Saturday.